Well, Kufar, Akbar, everybody, once again, welcome to another edition of the Cross and Crescent Discussion Group. We are a live stream show dedicated to rightly dividing the truth between Christianity and Islam. I am coming to you live from the Kafir Cave in Dar al-Harb, Kafirstan. We are here every Monday now. Make sure we understand this. We are here every Monday, not Sunday, every Monday. And instead of 4, we're here at 5 Central Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then y'all folks out there in the West Coast, you figure it out, whatever your time zone that you're in. I know my parents lived in Arizona, and it seems like Arizona doesn't ever go on daylight savings time. Am I right? I might be willing to be wrong on that, but it just seems like they never change times. But here, living in Kafirstan, we do. Okay, so today, couple things that I wanted to get out of the way, admin notes real quick. I'm going to be, Connie, she hasn't answered me on Zoom yet. Not Zoom. What do we call this thing? Skype. She hasn't answered me on Skype yet, whether or not she's going to be able to make this, but I'm scheduled to be on Lloyd DeJong's show once again on August 3rd. It'd be 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, I believe is the time. And the topic is going to be my favorite topic, which is Mecca. That's fast becoming my favorite. I shouldn't call it my favorite topic, but it's fast becoming my favorite topic. The more and more I dig into that Hamajama, the deeper and deeper that black hole goes of non-existent evidence for a 7th century Mecca. There's nothing there. And the whole premise that I have on this is the fact that every other religion, every other culture on the planet has some sort of archaeological verification of its existence at whatever time period it presupposes or supposes to have began in, existed in. Not Islam. Mecca doesn't have that. Mecca has nothing. It's not mentioned in any text until 741 AD. Muhammad died 632, folks. You see a problem here? It's not found on any map until 900 AD. You see a problem here? This is Muhammad died 632, folks. So there's all kinds of issues with the historicity. Where's Paul when you need him? There's all kinds of problems with the historicity of Islam, and that's like a 3-legged stool: Muhammad, the Quran, and Mecca. You take one of those things away, the whole thing comes tumbling down. And the more and more we stick with this Mecca shtick and get the word out there, the more and more people are going to look. And the more people look, and they too will find nothing. And they will come to realize that this is nothing but a house of cards. All right, so today, folks, and I'm going to need some extra effort from the panel today. Last week, it seemed like all I did was talk and talk and talk and talk. And not everybody comes here to live the whole time. I mean, Dr. Kufarphobia, he just got done with the 4-hour live. So if he doesn't have a lot of energy right now, I can understand. However, Mr. Rad and Sister Darcy, I'm going to need some help today. And today we're going to be talking about Sharia. Now, I know this is Paul's favorite subject because Paul has been going through the Reliance of the Traveler line by line, section by section for the past, I don't know, how long has it been? How's he been long he's been doing this, Darcy? Do you have any idea? It's been literally months.
Yeah, it's been quite a while.
Yeah. So, and we just got done finishing up something dealing with Hajj, the things that you're supposed to do on Hajj. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to touch on some of the things that we find in Reliance of the Traveler that we've discussed several times on this show, and I'm going to do it again and keep singing it until I'm blue in the face. We like your Donald Duck Trump. Yes, we like that. I'm going to keep singing until I'm blue in the face to make sure that people understand exactly what these pro-Palestinian people are celebrating and trying to convince everybody else is such a grand idea, and that is the Sharia. The Sharia, of course, is Islamic law, and Islamic law is based on all kinds of effects. So let's go ahead and bring up the slideshow here to begin with. I have to enlarge this, minimize this, connect this, present that, which is share screen, window, ba-bing, ba-boom. There you go, right there. Okay, the Pact of Umar. The Pact of Umar was supposedly, Dr. Kufarphobia so gently reminded me in, I don't know if it was it just in Skype that you notified me of this? That
yeah. It was just before, right after you sent the link. Yeah.
Okay. Why would you say something? Go ahead. I don't have a problem people sharpshooting this at all. Go ahead and tell me why you would say such a thing.
Well, because I've been reading some sources, and there's kind of like a debate as to when this was actually written. There is a scholar named A.S. Tritton. He doesn't believe that, he believes that it's a fabrication. And the reason he says that is because later Muslim conquerors, they didn't apply the terms of the agreements with the non-Muslims. There's also another scholar, Daniel C. Dennett. He believes that the Pact of Umar was no different than any other treaty negotiated. There's another scholar who believes this pact comes from Umar II.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that one too. Yeah.
Yeah, and Umar II was an Umayyad caliph. He was like the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. He was the 8th ruler under the Umayyads, and he was the nephew of Abu Malik.
Okay.
Yeah, and here's the funny thing. Marwan I, right? His mother was Amina, right? The same name as so-called Muhammad. He was married to Aisha, and he was also married to Zainab, right? Supposedly Muhammad's adopted son's wife. And he happened to have 3 sons named Umar, Uthman, and Muhammad. And he supposedly was born in Mecca, which Mecca, I don't know. Definitely not the Mecca where we think it is. So when we say Muhammad, we don't have any records of a Muhammad in the 7th century. So could Muhammad be the son of Marwan and Umar and Uthman, right? So yeah, pretty much all of these so-called letters are my understanding is they're fabrications. But
okay, well, let's just pretend that it is a fabrication. Let's just say it is. And I'm really not. I'm indifferent to it. I could care less if it's a fabrication or not, and here's why. Because the Muslims don't think it is. Yeah. And it's the application is where is where I'm concerned, and that's where I'm focused. Whether or not the origins of the Pact of Umar are correct, that it was in fact written in 638, like it's supposed to have been or supposedly been, or not, for me, is irrelevant. It's the application today and how Muslims apply it today in their when they encounter non-Muslims, and all of this ties into the Sharia, and you'll see what I'm talking about as we go through this. Now, the Pact of Umar, as Dr. Kufarphobia had stated, is a treaty that was supposedly forced upon the Jews in Jerusalem in 638 when Umar laid siege to Jerusalem and attacked it and eventually took it over. And in order for the Jews to live with them and accept the rule of the Muslims, they had to agree to this treaty. So what I want to do is I want to go through the treaty, the specific aspects of the treaty, and show you essentially how antithetical they are to Western democracies. Let's just put it that Western democracies as a whole. When you look at what is demanded in this treaty, you're gonna, I don't know, it's just gross is what it is. It's the 7th century trying to make its way in some form of, or trying to attain some form of legitimacy in the 21st century. It's ridiculous. All right, so Pact of Umar, 638. And a lot of the Sharia is derived from the Pact of Umar, but the Sharia itself, the Islamic law, is derived from the Quran, the Sunnah, the Sirah. The Sunnah would be the Hadith collections, Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawud, Al-Nasir, all those jokers. And then the Sirah, of course, is the biography, the Tafsir, which is the commentary on the Quran, and the Pact of Umar. So when we look at the Sharia itself, all of these things contribute to the legal code that we find in Islam. And we can find a lot of that in this book right back here, this little green book that I keep right here on the shelf underneath my little piggies. In Reliance to the Traveler. Reliance to the Traveler is the jurisprudence manual for Islamic law. And it's over 1,200 pages. I'm fairly certain of that. It's a thick Hamajama. The pact itself begins with, in the name of God, the merciful and the compassionate. This is a letter to the servant of God, Umar, commander of the faithful, from Christians of such and such a city. When you came against us, we asked you for safe conduct for ourselves, our descendants, our property, and the people of our community. And we undertook the following obligations towards you. So this is what the Muslims are saying towards the Christians and the Jews, that they said that these are the obligations that are to be afforded to them. So when we look we begin in Appendix O, it's Division O. It's divisions. I don't even know how many divisions there are. Do you know off the top of the head how many divisions there are? Good night. You have Division O, X. Let's see, X, Y. So Y would be the last division. So you have the A, B, C, D, all the way down to Y, which one short of Z. Sorry, pig. Back you go. Okay, so Division O, and this talks about the Pact of Umar, which is a formal agreement, is made with the citizens who are, and this is the law. This is what you are to do. You are to make a formal agreement of protection with the dhimmis, who are Jews, Christians, Zoroastrians, which don't exist hardly anymore. And then there is some nuanced respective group of Sumerians and Sabians, and as long as their religions don't contradict Christianity. And then it goes on to say, and those who adhere to the religion of Abraham or one of the other prophets. And so they're kind of covering their bases as long as they're all within this Abrahamic covenant fold that everybody supposed to exist in, or the religions that they practice. Pact of Umar says right here, we shall not build in our cities, on our neighborhoods, new monasteries, churches, convents, or monk cells, nor shall we repair by day or by night such as them, as they fall in ruins or are situated in the quarters of the Muslims. So according to Islamic law, and you go to page 608 in Reliance of the Traveler, Christians cannot do this. And it says non-Muslims are not obliged or obligated, are obligated to follow the rules in this. And you cannot, now look what it says you can't do. You cannot build churches. What if a Western country told Muslims that they could not build mosques? What do you think the reaction would be?
Yeah, they'd start burning churches and hurting people.
Bedlam. And you know what? I would absolutely disagree with that to my dying day. If you want to build a mosque, go for it. Build a mosque. See how many people come to it and see how many people protest. I mean, we're allowed to do that as believers. But I would never want to prevent somebody from building a house of worship. Now, one of the big arguments that I know Dr. Kufarphobia has gotten into, maybe it wasn't you, but somebody was making an argument that Islam really isn't even a religion. It's a political ideology. It is a warlike ideology masquerading as a religion. Is that your position?
Yeah, that would be me. And I also think Dr. David, Bill Warner also calls it a political system.
Right, there you go. Yeah, and that's the title of his website is Political Islam. Yeah,
right.
So you're right. Okay, yeah. So when we look at it through that lens, I would say, okay, fine. I can say, okay, fine. Don't allow them to do that. However, until they start practicing it in a violent way, or in a manner in which they're trying to subvert the government around it through their religious practices, I would say, go ahead and let them do it. But I need to get it together. There are mosques out there that have done that. If you look at some of those mosques that there's those ones that they had all of those terrorists that they arrested. It was in Virginia. And you can make an argument to say, look, that's a jihadi type base right there. We shouldn't allow that mosque to exist. And I agree with that. If you're not in there preaching just, the tenets of your religion, and you're preaching something in accordance with that is meant to subvert the government that is in existence at that time, or propagating some type of ideology that promotes violence, then I would say no, that you're going to have to shut it down. But these guys won't even let you build a church nor repair it. John Isaac when he lived in Egypt, he talked about this. I see Steve just came in here. I saw there. If you go to Steve's YouTube, not his YouTube, his Facebook, he's giving marital advice. I saw today on how to keep your wife happy. And evidently, according to Steve, the best way to keep your wife happy is to order 2 pizzas instead of 1. And, do I have that right, Mr. Steve? Or
I've done a lot of research on this, and so I have. It's my experience that when things can be subdivided into how do we say it colloquially, but in a relatable and relevant. No, just kidding. Yeah, 2 pizzas is the answer, man.
2 pizzas. I get it. Yeah. So
it's anyway, like
I was going to include.
She likes Canadian bacon. and I'm an American and a Christian, and so I don't eat bacon, and so sorry about that. Yeah. So.
Well, what happens to the pepperoni?
Well, I did eat pepperoni. I do eat pepperoni. Pepperoni made it in. I can't eat bacon. I can't eat ham. I can't eat pork chops, but I can eat pepperoni, and I do it just to try to break that thing in my life. But it's the only thing that got in is the pepperoni. So anyway.
You know where pepperoni comes from?
Yeah. Where?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
No, I'm pretty sure it's pork. So
that's what I'm thinking. So also,
yeah. Like I said, it got in, along with ranch dressing, and so.
And the pepperoncinis. I love those pepperoncinis. That's like the best part of the pizza when you get the pepperoni. Okay, Steve. Now, you've lived in Muslim countries before. Can you tell me if you've seen or experienced this application of the Sharia where you cannot repair or build a church? And if you have, but I was just wondering if you'd seen this before.
I haven't really seen it in my, around myself, around in the West Bank or in the Gaza Strip. But I know that it is a horrendous issue in Egypt. And it's almost like you gotta, in order to repair a church, in order to build a church, you really have to move mountains. It is extremely difficult in Egypt, which has the largest Christian population of any Middle Eastern country by far, and yet the Islamic restrictions apply there very stringently. It's very difficult to build or to add on to a church or to fix, if there's a problem. Now, there are some churches, and in fact, I was with a friend yesterday who's from one of the biggest evangelical churches in Egypt. It's called the Asra Dubara, and it's in Cairo. And it's a huge church, and they do lots of great ministry there in Egypt. And so, you know what? They might say things are a little bit better in Cairo, but when you get out into the countryside, just outside of Cairo and Alexandria, those are the two big metropolitan areas. What I've heard is it is very bad, very, very bad, very, very difficult to.
Well, that's what John Isaac was basically saying, is that, just they can't build them. And then to repair them, there's a ton of red tape that you have to go through just to, fix, maybe something as simple as a toilet or a broken window or whatever. And, it's 2024 for crying out loud. And these countries that exist like Egypt and like, Syria or Libya or Saudi Arabia or whatever, if you want to be treated like an adult in the international world of nations, then you need to act like an adult. You need to act like you don't live in the 7th century where you apply these draconian laws repressing other people's religious practices. However, not every country is a Western democracy. Not every country is a Christian country that embraces, or it's not a Christian country, but a country that is based upon the Christian ethic or ethos itself, where do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And they abide by these, which we would call draconian or medieval type like practices. And this is exactly what you would expect to find like in a country like Egypt, in a country like Pakistan, Afghanistan, and all of these Suckistans. These types of, this is what you expect to find. Now, going back to this reliance of the troops, wrong one. I got to get this back. Here we go. There was one more thing, and it's right here right here in number 7. It says you are forbidden to build new churches. So when people start arguing, saying, "Oh, that's not true," that Islam is inclusive, it allows you to practice your own religion. No, it doesn't. This pact number 1 says that you can't, but number 2, it's signified, or it's outlined in the Islamic law itself. It's outlined in the reliance of the travel, in the Sharia. Next one, number 2. We shall keep our gates wide open for passers-by. We shall give board and lodging to all Muslims who pass for 3 days. So if you are a Christian living in a Muslim land and you have a Muslim who needs to be lodged because they don't have money to stay at the Motel 6 or the Holiday Inn or whatever, you have to put them up right here. You have to put them up for how long? For 3 days. Does that seem very fair to anybody? I would hope not. Number 3, we shall not give shelter in our churches or in our dwellings to any spy, nor bide him from the Muslims. Now, what would you classify as a spy here? Does anybody have any idea what that spy would mean? Nobody? Nobody wants to, no takers here?
Non-Muslim?
A what?
A non-Muslim, maybe?
That's exactly what a spy is going to be. It's a non-Muslim, somebody who is not interested in furthering the religion of Islam is going to be considered a spy. And they put this in here. You notice it says, we shall not give shelter in our churches. This is, kind of one of those traditions where you could always seek sanctuary in a church from, the King of Nottingham, or you take your pick of kings. Kings were not able to go into churches and pull people out to arrest them. If somebody went into a church, they could have sanctuary there. Now they have to stay there forever and a day, but at least they would have sanctuary in the church. And then number 4, we should not teach the Quran to our children. So in other words, Dr. Kufar phobia, you are not going to be allowed to teach the Quran to any Muslim child.
Dang it.
I'm sorry?
No, I said dang it.
Yeah, I can tell that you're disappointed. And
I'm very disappointed.
And I would, if I'm, I would think this is probably a good idea, because you would not want somebody like myself teaching the Quran to Muslim children, because I would point out all of these other problems that we find that are inherent in the Quran to these kids, and they just might apostatize, dear God help us, from Islam, because you have some kafir, like this guy, teaching them the Quran. All right. And plus, I wouldn't be beating them like they do these kids in these madrasas. That's, didn't we have like a show a couple of weeks ago that showed what happened to these kids in these madrasas? It seemed like we put something together. We were showing what happens to them and the amount of violence that is. This is, when you're a teacher, you're not allowed to hit the kids. That's just kind of a basic rule here in Kafirstan. Can't hit the kids just because they're not learning. Well, that rule does not apply to mosques or to Islam. That rule does not apply to those people who are teaching these kids in madrasas the Quran. They get this slip and slip. We showed one of them was they actually chained him. They chained him down or something. We did this a couple of weeks ago, it seems like.
Hey, but they have to wait until he's at least 10 years old, right? After 10, man, it's fair game.
I don't know if they got to wait that long. Some of these kids look pretty young that they were slapping around. I don't know.
You mean they're going against Muhammad's words? It says teach your kids to read, and then when they get to be 10, you can beat them.
Oh, is that what it says? Okay, well, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I can testify that they start much earlier than 10.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Yeah. Yeah, because those it seems to me those kids had to be less than 10. But and yeah, I know what you're saying, that there's that. What is that, a hadith that Muhammad said that you can't beat them until they turn 10, or maybe it's the age of something along those lines.
Well, it's because he's a mercy to all mankind.
All mankind, yes.
Mercy.
I keep forgetting that little spot.
Yeah.
Okay, next part of Pact of Umar. Number 5, we shall not manifest our religion publicly, nor convert anyone to it. Christian mercenaries like Steve, if you are in Gaza, they're going to shoot at your van and your guitar if you are not careful. We shall not prevent any of our kin from entering Islam if they wish it. So in other words, it's like the Hotel California. Once you get in, you can't leave, and don't you dare try to get anybody else not to come in. And what does it say? You can't convert anybody to coming into your hotel. So this is just a one-way street here. Not a.
And I said, we had when I lived in Gaza, I worked at a Bible society, and at that time, Yasser Arafat was in charge, and so they allowed the Bible society in Gaza, and it was there for it was probably about 7 years. They allowed it to be there, but then when Hamas took over shortly thereafter, and I worked there 3 years, they kidnapped the general manager, brutally murdered him, and so the Bible Society is not in Gaza anymore.
They murdered this guy while you were there?
They murdered him 5 months after I left.
After you left. Okay, that's right. Okay. Yeah, that's. Yeah,
it was in the New York Times. It was a huge
when we
story.
think about, I remember there was a video, and I'm pretty sure it was who is that guy? Not Ahmed Didat. Ahmed Didat's protege.
Zakir Naik.
Zakir Naik. There you go. Zakir Naik. I can't remember his name. Zakir Naik had a video talking about allowing the Bible into a Muslim country, and he says, we don't allow the Bible into Muslim country. We don't allow this Bible into. I can't do his impression. We don't allow the Bible into Muslim countries because it's not true. It would be the same. He says this is the equivalent. He said it would be the same of a textbook that taught, 5 + 5 = 12. We wouldn't let a textbook into our country that said that, so therefore we're not going to allow the Bible into our country because the Bible is false. That's the type of mentality you get. Not letting people decide for themselves, not letting people to practice religion freely. Stop it at all costs. To stop the gospel at all costs, and that always worked really well, hasn't it?
Hey, could you show my screen just for 1 second? I just want to see this is my friend Rami, and he was the general manager of the Bible Society. He had 3 kids, 2 kids, and his wife was pregnant when they murdered him.
I read about this. I remember that. I read about this. That's right. Yes. I've read about this guy.
Yeah. So
Did they try to kidnap? No, they didn't try to kidnap. Didn't they do something?
No, they did. They did. They kidnapped him.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, brother. That's a tough piece. Okay, so we will not manifest our religion publicly. We don't let anybody convert to Christianity, Judaism, or any of the like. However, if you want to convert to Islam, that's quite all right. Again, in reliance to the traveler, you go to page 608, Division O, Section 11.5. It says Muslims are obliged, or non-Muslims are obliged to comply with Islamic rules that pertain to the safety, indemnity of life, reputation, property. In addition, they, right here, are forbidden to openly display wine. So you cannot have communion or pork, no bacon or pepperoni. They can't ring church bells. And I'll tell you, when we did the Radio Free Kafirstan on Blog Talk Radio, the opening was, I would play Hell's Bells from AC/DC for that very reason right there. You can't display crosses. You can't recite the Torah or in Evangel, which would be the gospel, aloud, or make public displays of their funerals and feast days. So in other words, hide in the shadows. Do not practice your religion openly. So this is Pact of Umar 101 stuff. Number 6, we shall show respect. Are you guys following this? We shall show respect towards the Muslims, and we shall rise from our seats when they wish to sit down. And my favorite poster child of this part of the Pact of Umar is this young lady right here, Rosa Parks. She absolutely refused to give up her seat in, what was that? I think it was Montgomery, Alabama. And this was during the time of segregation in our country because it just wasn't right. You do not discriminate against somebody because of their race or their ethnicity, nor should you be discriminated against somebody because of their religious affiliation. So
I think
there
that's a
was
very
a lady
positive
like that in the Muslim, too, but her name was Rosa Parks.
Isn't that I was saying?
I think it's a very positive thing that America is able to do that. America can evolve. And I think that's a great thing.
Well, of course, it's a great thing. That's why we're the greatest nation in the history of the planet. We're able to change. And this is the Constitution, the way our, and this is, thank you for bringing that up. He said, the way our Constitution is framed and the way our laws are framed is that they can be changed over time. And so when we start talking about slavery, our country passed 3 constitutional amendments to do away with that institution. When you talk about discrimination against women, we passed, I think it was the 20th Amendment or the 19th Amendment, allowing women to vote. When we talked about discrimination as far as, the bus, not allowing people certain parts of the bus. We did away with those laws. Instead, and the Supreme Court struck down those laws because they did violate the 14th Amendment. So yeah, this is what we were able to do that. In other countries, though, you're not able to do that, especially if it is the Sharia. And the Sharia says that you can't, or the Pact of Umar, which is reflected in the Sharia, says that if a Muslim wants to sit down and you are a Christian, he wants to sit down in your chair, you need to get up and give it to him. I'd like to see them try that in Kafirstan. I really would. That would be like, I don't know. I'd just see how that ended or how that worked out. Okay, what's the next one? The next one, keeping to the side of the street. You must force the kafir to the narrowest part of the side of the street. Now, why would that be in reliance of the traveler? Why would they say you need to go to the narrowest part of the side of the street?
Sounds like apartheid.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what it's like. Well, yeah, that's exactly what it's like. You want to see apartheid, you go to Gaza. There you go. Or a lot of Muslim majority countries. But that's where a lot of the excrement was, in the narrowest part of the street. So
you do know Islam is all inclusive. Little sarcasm there.
Yeah, that's what we're told. You're right. Let's see here. What is this? Slavery is practiced in no-go zones in countries. No one looks at polygamy and pedophilia in Islam. I agree. What's Connie doing? Connie, I got you. Connie, check your Skype, my young lady. What else did she say here? Oh, look who's here. Oh, look at this. Aladdin, check your Skype, dude. I want to have that debate. I want to have that debate on the NGO where we left off last week. When you get back from Saudi, I get it, but You're in Medina. Is that what that is? That what's that? Is that how you spell Medina? Medina. It's not how you do it the English way, but anyway. Yeah, and this is the tomb empty? Yeah. I hope you. Isn't there a law? Hold on a second. I'm getting off track here, but I wish Paul was here. But it seems to me that in the Sharia, Darcy, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the Sharia, you guys correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't there something that says in the Sharia, or maybe it's even in the Quran, where it says that you're not supposed to build churches over the tombs of your dead prophets? Am I correct?
Yeah.
That was one of Muhammad, before he died, Muhammad, he was greatly distressed. And so he cursed the Jews and the Christians because, this was his last words,
There we go. Okay.
Because they build sanctuaries over the tombs of their prophets, even though same has happened to him here.
Okay, yeah, right, and that was kind of be my point, was that they have built a mosque over the tomb of Muhammad, and it's one of the biggest mosques. It's the third most important mosque, or the second most important. Am I right on this? The second most important mosque in all of Islam.
Yeah.
To
after Mecca. Yeah.
Yeah. After. Yeah. Okay, what is this? I'm in Mecca. I'm in Mecca, then Medina, then Mecca, then Jordan, then Egypt, then Dubai, then back to the Philippines. All right. Well, whenever you get time, dude, set it up. I want to do this debate with you. You seemed pretty sure of yourself last week when you were saying that the gospel has been corrupted according to the Quran, when it clearly, anybody who can read can clearly see that it's not.
Here's a fun fact for you guys that I learned from watching Jay and Daughter Christ show, or Jay Apologetics. Aisha refused to be buried, did not want to be buried next to Muhammad. She told him, "Get out of here. Leave me alone," she said. "I do not want to be buried next to that man."
Any reason why, or anybody
Not
know
aware of. Didn't like him, I guess.
Well, I mean, if you think about that, if you were her, would you want that man anywhere near you for all of eternity after what he did to her? When you think about what that guy did to that little child, never in a million years. Okay, let's go back to Pact of Umar. Sorry for getting sidetracked, folks. We had a bad habit of doing that here. Okay, Pact of Umar, number seven. We shall not seek to resemble the Muslims by imitating any of their garments, the qalan swa, the turban, footwear, or the parting of the hair. We shall not speak as they do, nor shall we adopt their kunyas. What is a kunya?
It's a nickname. It's like a nickname that someone has.
Okay, so I can't be called Mo or.
Oh man, I'm so disappointed in all this. I can't dress like a I can't wear a dress.
I'm an area what? I didn't hear.
I don't like it at all.
Yeah. So what about the parting of the hair? Did they part it down the middle, or did they part it off the side, or the
I don't believe in equality and equity.
Yeah.
This is not diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's for sure.
Well, I'm not down with that struggle that much either. But when you start telling people what they can and cannot do, that's when I get a little upset. And you tell me I can't wear a whatever the heck this thing is. What is this? A quassaluna? I don't even know what it is. It makes me want to wear it now.
Kalansua.
That's what I want. I want to go out and get me one. I'm going to get on Amazon right now, and I'm going to order me a kalansua and a turban, and I'm going to wear it on next week's show.
Hey, Costco has really nice kalansuas, by the way.
Do they? Let me see. I'm going to go to Amazon to see if they have one of these things. How do you spell that thing? A K?
It's QALANSUWA.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, I think you should be able to wear whatever you want. That's what freedom is about, you know. And I think taking away freedom is wrong. Well, and I understand why you might feel feelings towards DEI, because the problem is that DEI is being done wrong. It's not really actual diversity, equity, inclusion. You know, it's more, inequity, lack of diversity, and no inclusion. You know.
Okay, it looks like this Kualan Sua is like a turban thing. And it look like
Yeah, I'm so disappointed I can't dress like them. I really am. I mean, that's something I really wanted to do, but
I think you can. Rod, you can wear. Maybe you should wear a thobe, and you can go on the motorcycle and wear a thobe or wear a jibba.
Yeah,
Wear a
that'll
jibba
work out real well.
on the motorcycle.
Okay, so next week, folks, we're looking for the Kualan Sua or a turban. I didn't even know what these things are. Okay. So here again, you're obliged as a kafir, as a dhimmi, to follow this, and you are not. You have to distinguish yourself from Muslim dress, and you have to wear this zunar. Now, this zunar is a wide cloth that Christians, dhimmis, were required to wear around their waists. And also, look at this one. You are not greeted with Assalamu alaikum. You can't say peace be unto you. You can't say that to non-Muslims.
I think you say wa alaikum. You don't say wa alaikum salam. You say wa alaikum.
Well, I can say a couple things to them if they don't want to, And here again, this is where you would say, would you ever say you cannot say, or would you ever try to prevent somebody by giving the greeting of peace of Christ? May the peace of Christ be with you. I would say never, ever would we ever restrict somebody from saying that. Here, they're so insecure in their faith system that they can't even give a non-Muslim a peace greeting. I got a couple words I'd say about that, but this isn't really a PG-13 show. When we talk about Islam, it's quite the opposite. All right. Number 8, we shall not mount on saddles, nor shall we gird swords, nor bear any kind of arms, nor carry them on our persons. So, Second Amendment, no sir, not for the dhimmi. So if you want to carry, it says you can't have saddles and you can't have swords. So in other words, you cannot defend yourself. Think about that one, folks. We shall not engrave Arabic inscriptions on our seals. Well, who would want to? Can't read it anyway. We shall not sell fermented drinks. That includes wine, which would preclude the taking of the Eucharist, taking of communion. Now, I go to a church that they serve grape juice. They don't serve wine, but that's not the point. This is restricting the religious practice of Christians who do serve wine during communion. And this is why I said all along that Pact of Umar is the antithesis of Western civilizations. And let's see here, are forbidden to openly display wine or pork. This results in prohibition. Okay, here, yeah, I think this is where I said this. It's prohibition. What do I got going on here? Some warning in my ear from my phone. This explains why Saudis, when traveling abroad, and when we look at the Saudis, when they travel, I mean, it's like they're like a bunch of party animals when they get to these other countries where they bring in all these women and all this liquor, and they do all these things because in Saudi Arabia, they're not allowed to do these things. Number 11, we shall clip the front of our heads. I think that goes in line with, I don't know, something to do with hairstyles back then. Who knows? We shall always dress in the same way whenever we may be, and shall bind the zunar around our waist. Again, this is to show subservience or their status as a dhimmi. And when we look at reliance of the traveler, again here in Division O, 1152, you have to distinguish yourself from Muslims in your dress. And when you look at this is the same thing as wearing the Star of David during the Holocaust. You had to distinguish yourself from other people, the rest of the population, through your dress. And this is no different. So way to go, Hitler. So we have Hitler-like dictate here. We shall not display crosses or books in the roads or markets of the Muslims. We shall use only clappers in our churches very softly. And I looked up what that is. That was like a musical instrument that was kind of a makeshift musical instrument that was used during that time. We shall not raise our voices when following our dead. Don't you be crying when somebody dies. We shall not show lights on any of the roads of the Muslims or in their markets. We shall not bury our dead near the Muslims. So in other words, prophet was not what is this? Who is this? This here. Sorry. Prophet was not a child molester as
That's a spammer.
Oh.
All he puts in is those little icons.
Oh, well, isn't that neat? I like the name. My prophet was not a child molester, as the Hadith says. So in other words, the Hadith says that your child was a child molester. Why did you put that in your name, dude? That's the dumbest thing. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, so we shall not bury our dead near the Muslims. So you have segregation not only when people are alive, but you also have segregation once you die, because you cannot be buried next to Muslims. Not that, I don't know if you would want to be buried in an Islamic cemetery, or if you were a Muslim, would you want to be buried in a Christian cemetery? That's not really the point. It's the prohibition of it is kind of the point. And Catholicism, if you look at Catholicism, I think that I know back home we have, in the town that my wife is from, they have a cemetery and then they have a Catholic cemetery. And unless you are Catholic, you cannot be buried in that Catholic cemetery. So I guess there is, Christianity is not guiltless from.
Yeah, I've seen that too. In the town I was born in, one side of the road street is for Catholics only, and across the other is for like Lutherans or whoever.
In the cemetery?
They separate them, the beliefs.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What else we got here? Is that it? Nope. We got one more. We shall not take slaves who have been allotted to Muslims. So if you are a slave of a Muslim, you can never be a slave of a Kafir. You must continue to be a slave of Muslim. Notice, we shall not take slaves. So in other words, you can take slaves. You can practice slavery. And this is one of the things that people miss, is that slavery was a common practice throughout the entire planet up until the 18th and 19th centuries. It wasn't until, I think England was the first one with, who was that guy? Wilberforce started this shtick of ending slavery worldwide. And it eventually took hold across all of Europe and into the Americas. And then the last place on the planet where slavery was ended was in Africa. And that's where everybody says all these abuses were made. Well, it was legal in Africa all the way up until 1973 or something like that. Mauritania finally did away with it. Am I right on that?
No, they still have lots of slaves over there.
But legally.
Mauritania does. They do still do slavery there.
Well, I know they're still practicing it. I know that, but legally under the laws of their country. People
You're
are
saying
not.
it's illegal. It's like an illegal practice that's still going on. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, it's still going on. There's no doubt about that. As a matter of fact, it's still going on in Saudi Arabia, just under another form. They're bringing all these girls in from Asia to work as domestic help, and they're taking their passports away from them and not working them 18, 20 hours a day and starving them out and not paying them anything. It's just slavery as a under a different name. But here we see in the Reliance of the Traveler, in the Pact of Umar, that slavery is legal. We shall not build houses overtopping the houses of Muslims, meaning you can't build a house that is higher than a Muslim's. And then it closes, when I brought the letter to Umar, may God be pleased with him, he added, we shall not strike a Muslim. So you can, all these things that Muslims do to you, regardless, it doesn't matter. Don't you dare hit a Muslim, because if you do, then you're breaking the treaty and your protection is withdrawn. Okay. And this is, it goes on to say what I want to do now. And of course, the conclusion is that it violates the rights and liberties of non-Muslims. It restricts the worship of non-Muslims, segregates Muslims and non-Muslims, and purposely prevents the growth of other faiths. And essentially, it humiliates non-Muslims. Okay, what I want to do now is I want to show some excerpts from Reliance of the Traveler. We might not be going full 2 hours today, and that's okay. Some things that Paul probably is going to get to, I would say, next February, if he keeps going at the rate he does, because we don't even cover a section, a show. I mean, we only get part of a section of the show. So I'm going to speed ahead here on this show anyway, just to remind everybody what Reliance of the Traveler says. Now, keep in mind, Reliance of the Traveler, folks, Reliance of the Traveler is the jurisprudence manual for Islamic law. Where did I do with mine? It's right here in the front of Reliance of the Traveler. It tells who endorses this manual, this law manual. It says right here, it's the classic manual of Islamic sacred law, is what it says at the beginning here. And then it talks about the 4 schools of Islamic law, and then it talks about the endorsements. The endorsements, let's see here, you have the Imam of the Mosque of Darwa Pasha in Syria, the Mufti of the Jordanian Armed Forces, President of the International Institute of Islamic Thought, and here is the big one. Al-Azhar University. That is the most powerful, most prestigious university in all of Islam, and they endorse this as official Islamic law. So, in other words, unless you come up with a different one, I think I have a different one back here, right here. But this is set up differently, and I haven't had time to go through it yet. To pick out, or to pick through it anyway. I'll get to it eventually. I'm retired. I can do anything I want. All right, so let's go ahead and get with the Reliance of the Traveler. I went in and took a couple of screenshots of it today, and let's talk about apostasy. Now, when you think of apostasy, there's all kinds of different forms of apostasy in Islam, and we're going to go through what they are and what that entails. So it says here, leaving Islam is the ugliest form of kufr, thakfir, and the worst. And look it down here. It says, when a person who has reached puberty and is saying voluntary apostatize from Islam, what is the punishment for that? He deserves to be killed. Folks, this comes right out of their jurisprudence manual for law. He deserves to be killed. Period. And then for those who kill them, that says there's no indemnity, meaning there's no punishing the people who do the killing for that. And then let's look at what it means to leave Islam, or what it means to apostatize from Islam. You can apostatize from Islam if you prostrate to an idol, meaning if you pray to, of course, it would be an idol, I guess. Or right here, whether sarcastically or out of contrariness. So even if you're doing it jokingly, that's apostasy. And what is the punishment for apostasy? Right here, you can be killed. So be careful what you're doing. To speak words that imply unbelief, such as Allah is a third of three. So if you're saying that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and if you believe in the Trinity, you've committed apostasy. And what? You deserve to be killed. That's right in their right. That's right in their right, folks. That's right from their manual. This is my favorite one right here. To revile Allah. So if you're going to take Allah's name in vain and you are going to say that Allah is a bad guy or bad God or whatever, that's apostasy. And if you apostatize from Islam, what? You can be killed. But it doesn't stop at Allah. No. Look who else is right there with Allah if you revile him. Look at right there. Who else was that? Oh, his messenger. Who might his messenger be? It doesn't say, notice it doesn't say messengers in the plural. It just says one. So who is his messenger? Muhammad. So if you revile God and Muhammad, that's apostasy. What about Jesus? Same thing about Jesus. The same thing about Moses. The same thing about Abraham. No, just Muhammad. This is sick. What do we got next? To be sarcastic about Allah's name. In other words, say, make fun of Allah, or something like that. And here's another good one. Here's another good one. To deny any verse of the Quran or anything which by scholarly consensus belongs to it, or to add a verse that does not belong. So we were having a discussion last week. This is perfect. When we were having this discussion last week with Mr. Aladdin, and he's trying to tell us that the Quran would tell us what the Quran says about the Gospels and how it says the Gospels are corrupt. Aladdin is in violation of this here, to deny any verse of the Quran or anything which by scholarly consensus belongs to it. You are denying the plain teaching of the Quran by doing that. So you are apostate. You are an apostate, sir. So if you are going to try to push this while you are in Al-Medina or Al-Mecca or whatever, Sukkistan that you're in, I'd be very careful, because if somebody's following the Islamic law, if they're following the Sharia and they catch you changing the meaning of the Quran, or which by scholarly consensus says so, you're going to get hemmed up, big man.
I think I actually dig what you're saying, Brother Eric. I think the problem is this argument of tahrif or corruption. It doesn't work. If you say that these texts are corrupted, you might win a battle, but you lose the war. You lose the theological war, because what you're saying is that God is either weak or God is a deceiver. And these are really terrible attributes that you put onto God, which is, I would say, it's kind of like a theological suicide. I don't understand. I get it that they may not align, but you could say, hey, they have mystical readings or whatever. But if you try to deny that these texts are from God, I think it's a huge crisis. It's a huge theological crisis. And I think it's really fair when Christian apologists, hold this up and say, hey, man, you can't talk about tahrif. You can't talk about corruption. Because if you do, then what if you read the Quran, for example, it's like a Spark Notes version. It's very, it doesn't give us an exhaustive approach of any of these protagonists, right? I said the largest would be about Prophet Joseph, right? According to the narrative in the Quran versus Bereshit, Genesis. And but everything else is very spark notes. So we really don't know anything without these other scriptures. We don't have context. We need the context of the scriptures to understand who these people are, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the point that tells us why Muslims do this today is because they're embarrassed. A lot of them are grow up in, or at least are exposed to Western societies, and they develop this sense of morality that is exponentially higher than what Muhammad's is. So, in order to accommodate their beliefs in the societies that they're living in, they have to compromise. And by compromising, they have to go in and completely rewrite, or at least reinterpret, the meaning of the Quran and these passages that they find in the Hadith. I'm sorry. Okay, the meaning that they find in the Hadith, and they have to alter it to their own beliefs. Why? Because their beliefs are more moral than their prophets. I saw where'd it go? Here it is. What is this? This says that this caller, and he was referring to you, Isa.
What did I lie about?
I don't know. He didn't say.
I think everything I said was pretty consistent and sincere. I don't think there was anything I lied about.
Well, okay.
Come up.
Yeah, you can go ahead and come up, or if he wants to put that in chat, he's more than welcome. I don't think you lie. I just think you're wrong about so many things.
That's okay. It's fine. We're friends, buddy. Brother, we're friends. So it's fine. We can disagree because we're Americans. We're allowed to disagree.
I'm not going to cut your head off or exile you to some country in Suckistan. Okay. You are committing apostasy if you revile the religion of Islam. So if you criticize and say Islam is trash or whatever, I don't know how you would go about reviling it. I mean, you could say, things about Muhammad, but then that would, take us back to, which one was it? Reviling his messenger. But to say that Islam does this has led to, all kinds of wars. I don't know. Not exactly sure what revilement would mean, but any type of criticism of Islam, which we have plenty here, I guess we're in violation of this. Let's see here. You have to believe in angels and the jinn, the genies. If you don't believe in the genies, guess what? You are an apostate. So you better believe in them genies. Those TV shows too. To be sarcastic about any ruling of sacred law. So in other words, to mock reliance of the traveler. So when we get to the part about beating your wife, I'm going to be sarcastic about it. So I'm going to violate your law here. To deny that Allah intended the prophet's message to be the religion followed by the entire world. Now, I would say, disrespectfully, by the way, that there is no such thing as an Allah. Now, I get it. There are people in the Middle East call God Allah. You can't deny that. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But the Allah that we find in the Quran is not the same Allah that we find in the Bible. So to deny that Allah intended Muhammad's message to be the religion followed by the entire world, I deny that. I think that Muhammad's message, it's not Allah's message, it's Muhammad's message. And I don't think it should be followed by anybody. Because if you follow that message, you are commanded to follow the Sunnah of Muhammad. And by doing so, you're going to get yourself in jail, lickety snot. So if you want to stay out of jail, don't follow the Sunnah. Jihad. Let's go to jihad. Jihad means to do what? Jihad. Rad, are you there? Red, are you there? Red kind of just hangs out. He fades in and out. Some days and he said he was the one that recommended that we switch to Mondays. One of the chief proponents of the recommendation to move to Mondays, because he says he had the day off and he could make the show. And I would doggone it. But what would be your jihad? Do you guys remember this? Do you guys remember this ad campaign about 10, 15 years ago? My jihad is...
My jihad's against sugars.
Your jihad's what?
Against eating sugar. I know what you're talking about.
That's your struggle. My struggle is against, I don't know, drinking too much lemonade. Who knows? That's your jihad. And we had a whole ad campaign thrown at us for Lord knows how long. We even put ads on bus. My jihad is to lose weight or what. Just shut up. Shut your pie hole. That's not your jihad. This is what your law says jihad is. It says to wage war against non-Muslims. And there's even a certain imam out there that uses this name, the mujahid, in his Islamic name, mujahid or something like that, Islam, the warrior of God. And then what does it do? It says signifying war. And what's the purpose of it? To establish the religion. So jihad isn't about losing weight. It's not about eating sugar or drinking lemonade or whatever. It's about using violence, waging war to do what? Establish Islam. That's what jihad means. Do not allow somebody to tell you that, what is this? Is eating carbs. Okay.
Maybe you're waging war against calories, though.
Against who?
No, man, I'm trying to stick to the carnivore diet, but I can't.
Carnivore diet. What is the carnivore? That's just eat meat?
Yes, strictly meat. No carbs.
Isn't that unhealthy?
Oh, very healthy for you.
Just eat meat. No peas and
just eat meat, cheese, eggs. Yeah, no fruits, no carbs. And boy, today I went straight carb. Not a single slice of meat. Just junk food.
So this is the opposite of being a vegan.
Yeah. Yep.
That's funny. Where did Rad go? Rad popped off there. Golly, I think maybe he was having problems. Here, let me get this up here. How many times it's in the Islamic? 90% of the time it is about war. Yeah, thank you, Sharon. You're exactly right. Yeah, he has. Bill Warner has put out. He's got a slideshow. I got a slideshow that I've used before that he breaks down the text, and I don't know what type of metric he uses in order to measure the amount of times that it's used in the Sirah or the Hadith or the Quran itself. But yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, so jihad is not, it's just not this inner struggle. Now it can mean that. This is true. I'm not denying that. But the primary definition of it says right here, jihad means to war against non-Muslims, and the purpose of it is to establish the religion. So using war against non-Muslims is jihad, to establish Islam. Okay, next. So when you look at the scriptural basis for this, it's right below it in Reliance of the Traveler. It says fighting is prescribed for you in the Quran. It says slay them wherever you find them. Fight the idolaters utterly. So they even cite chapter and verse in the Quran justifying this. And they also put in here the Hadith. It says, I've been commanded to fight until they testify there's no God but Allah and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. They perform prayers. They perform prayer and pay zakat. And if they say it, they have saved their blood and possessions from me, except the rights of Islam. So here, what they're doing is they are providing justification for this. Let me go back to it. For this, jihad means war against non-Muslims and to establish religion. So they're saying, well, why would you come up with that? Well, right here, it says it in the Hadith, and it also says it right here in the Quran itself. Okay, we brought in Mr. Ali Shah. Ali Shah, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very good, Eric. How are you today?
I am better than I deserve. There's no doubt about it. Was that you that was commenting in there, Laudisa? Was that you, or was that somebody else?
It was me, 100%. It was me. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, what were you saying that Isa was lying about?
I was just completely denying the things that he was saying. I just have a question. Like, if whatever belief my brother holds about Quran, that it's uncorrupted and it's never been changed and it's saved day by word to word, letter by letter from the day one, I want to ask him, in all of this treasure of ahadith, you have more than 60,000 of them. Out of any of those 60,000 ahadith, do you have any hadith that tells you that any of the companion of Prophet Muhammad held the same belief about Quran as you do? Because I have a hadith that says that Quran has been lost, Quran has been missed, or there are surahs that Aisha says that mother Aisha says that she used to recite when Prophet Muhammad was alive, but now she doesn't see those ayah in the Quran anymore. So I have a hadith pointing towards the loss of the Quran, but do you have any hadith that tells me that companions of Prophet Muhammad held the same belief about the Quran, that it is safe and nothing has been lost?
Isa, are you ready? Oh.
What's up?
Did you hear the question?
Sorry, I had just left for a minute. I'm back. What's the question?
Oh my goodness. What are you doing, dude? The guy.
No, I had to go outside. I had to go outside for a minute. I'm sorry, okay, but I'm here.
Okay, so Ali, can you shorten that up just a little bit and ask him the question? It had to do with perfect preservation of the. I don't think Isa's made the argument that the Quran's been perfectly preserved. Have you made that argument, Isa?
I didn't make that argument. I said that my argument is against tahrif. It's against corruption of the Torah and the Injil.
Oh, okay. So you're saying, okay, so the Quran, you're saying that the Quran does not say that the Torah or the gospel
is corrupted. I think it, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
I actually don't care if the Quran is perfectly preserved or not. But personally, I don't think perfect preservation means anything. What does that even mean? The yellow pages are perfectly preserved. So what? It doesn't tell us if the thing is true or not. That's not a good argument, personally.
Well, I like the argument of perfect preservation. I do.
Why?
Let me tell you. Give me a second here. I like the idea that the Quran has been perfectly preserved, and it makes my job as a Christian apologist and Islamic polemicist easy. Because if you believe that the Quran has been perfectly preserved, and when I go in and I start pointing out all the errors in it, you cannot say, well, that's just, it's been changed. It's been corrupted, or that's been changed. That's wrong. You can't do that. You say, no, this is perfectly preserved. This is what, the exact words coming out of Muhammad's mouth in the 7th century, and this is what we have today. So I don't think, don't get me wrong. I think it's clearly obvious that it has not been perfectly preserved. That much we know. I mean, that's demonstrated. I mean, we have physical evidence of different Qurans and different ways of the things that are written in them are completely different. So to say perfect preservation exists is not true. It's just and anybody that pushes that is lying to you. But if you want to make that and you want to believe that, I'm on your side, buddy. You want to think that and say that? Okay, fine. But you're perfectly preserving something that is incorrect. It is I mean, for example, the crucifixion during the time of Pharaoh. We all know that did not happen. And the Quran clearly says that crucifixion occurred during the time of Joseph. in 1800 BC and at the time of Moses in 1500 BC. Crucifixion was not around until the 5th century, over 1,000 years later. But if you want to say the Quran's been perfectly preserved, and that much is true, go ahead and do it. You can just show that the Quran is wrong. And that's just one of dozens of different examples. Ali, did we misunderstand you, or did you misunderstand what Isa was saying, or you're still holding to it, or what's up?
Yeah, I'll just repeat. My question was, whatever his belief is about the Quran, did any of the Prophet Muhammad's companion held the same belief about the Quran, that it is safe and it has never been changed? If there was one single companion who believed that the Quran is safe and it has never been changed, we should have at least one hadith, at least one hadith out of 60,000 hadiths. Is it not fair to ask?
Well, I'm not completely understanding the question. Are you saying that the Sahaba, the people of the Sahaba?
Yeah, they never held this belief that the Quran is safe.
The Quran was perfectly preserved from what?
Yeah,
Muhammad?
It was not. It wasn't their belief. Their belief was actually opposite to this. They believed that the passages have been lost.
Yes, yeah. I've read those hadiths before. You have where entire, was it like 200 chapters or something like that were missing out of, or 200 verses were missing out of one chapter, and you have of course the sheep gate where the sheep eats, or the goat or whatever it was eats the Quran out of Aisha's bed or whatever.
Exactly. So that my point is that the Muslims today might hold this belief that the Quran is safe, but I'm sorry to reveal it to you, none of your companions of the prophets held this belief. They always believe that yes, it has been lost.
Yeah,
it can be your belief, but this is not the belief of Sahaba.
Well, I think today's Muslims believe things that the early Muslims did not believe. For example,
I agree.
Well, they're not necessarily the perfect preservation, but the corruption of the Gospels and the
tahrif argument. The corruption of these texts is false. It's a bid'ah. It's an innovation that has come in, and it's very bad. It's a bad innovation that really hurts. If you are a Muslim, it really hurts your theology, I think.
Yeah, and I agree. It's obvious that the earliest Muslims believed that the gospel, I wouldn't say the earliest Muslims, at least Muhammad believed that the Gospels had been, I don't know, perfectly preserved, but he at least believes that they were accurate scripture from
They're
God.
True.
Yeah. Now, he might not have believed in perfect preservation or whatever, that's fine. But he believed that we Christians, it says in 7:157, it says that you have that right there in your hands. You will find it right there in the gospel that you have right there in your hands. Well, we have complete Bibles that date clear back to the 4th century, for crying out loud, and Muhammad lives in the 7th century. So it's obvious that he didn't think that many of us had corrupted scriptures. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're talking about the same hadith that says that Aisha said the verse of stoning and breastfeeding an adult 10 times was revealed, and the paper was with me under my pillow. When the messenger of Allah died, we were preoccupied with his death, and the tame sheep came and ate it. So, of course, either this hadith is wrong, or either this verse is actually missing.
Yeah, there's some things that are just a little too convenient. And, when you start looking at, okay, so this idea of, in order to get sorry, but in order to get away from this desire that I have for this woman, you're going to require me to I'm not even going to get into it. Grab her boobs and start sucking on them. That's gonna fix.
There's one more, Eric. There's one more. When Umar bin Khattab says, somebody tells him, the other Sahabi tells him that I know the complete Quran, and then Umar bin Khattab, the second Caliph of Islam, tells him and bounds him from saying it and tells him, do not ever say that you know the whole Quran. Only say that you know the Quran that has been come to you.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And I agree 100% with you. There's several different hadith out there that do mention that the Quran is either incomplete, lost, and there's some of them that where it clearly demonstrate that these guys would get in fist fights with each other if you didn't recite it exactly how they were reciting it. And to this day, and this is what really where Christianity has a firm foundation to stand upon when you compare this with the Quran. When we look at the original writings of the gospel authors, for an example, I had a show a couple of weeks ago that talked about a bishop from Alexandria who wrote in, I believe it was the year 305. He was writing in the year 305, and he wrote that the original autograph of the Gospel of John still existed in Ephesus. So when we start talking about us having the originals, or in not all of the originals, of course, but original copies of, that example was the Gospel of John existing 200 years after it was written, well after 200 years after it was written, and certain letters of Paul's, and they talked about how they were venerated. Tertullian talked about how the letters of Paul still existed. This was 191, I believe. And then you compare that to the Quran, where the Quran was edited by Uthman in, what was it, 651, 653, somewhere around there, and all of the originals, unlike the Gospels, unlike the New Testament, were destroyed. So when we look at the strength of the New Testament over the Quran, it's head and shoulders above that. So yeah, and I don't think Isa was making that point, and I'm not here to defend Isa because I like watching him get trounced. But
you're silly.
I'm kidding. You know, I'm kidding, Isa.
I know. We're good buddies.
I don't think he was making that point, but I do.
No, my point was against Tahrif. My position is I think the argument of Tahrif is a bad one, and I see a lot of Muslims using it, and it's really terrible. And it's like, it doesn't make sense because it's actually one of the creeds. The creed is you believe in Allah, you believe in the Kitab, you believe in the books, you believe in the prophets, you believe in the angels, you believe in the day of judgment, you believe in God's power. That's a creed. So if you're saying you believe in the books, what are the books? And I saw when Dr. Wood was debating against our great Imam, Daniel Hakakichu. Daniel Hakakichu was squirming when he brought that up. He's like, oh, don't go there. No, he can go there. It's a valid argument. Yeah. And he's like, no, it's like mystical. I'm like, when did you become a Sufi, man? I thought you were a Wahhabi Salafi, bro. When did you become a Sufi? You become a Sufi when it suits you, you know?
I like this this point here by Nico about how Muslims destroy countless original artifacts, to include, oh, by the way, and I mentioned at the beginning of the show, if you're all interested, I'm going to be on Lloyd DeJong's show on August 3rd at 1 p.m. Central, when we're going to talk about Mecca. When you look at Mecca, the city of Mecca, they have destroyed all of the archaeology in that city in order to build these these skyscrapers. And we got pictures of it. And I'm going to be talking about how when we start looking at cover-ups, massive cover-ups, consequential cover-ups in world history, this is one of them, folks. If you were going to propagate Islam as being a world religion that is demonstrably true, why in the Hades would you destroy the evidence that supposedly supports that? The problem is they know that there wasn't any evidence that supported the historicity of Mecca in the 7th century. So in order to cover that up, they just cemented over it and built everything on top of it. So this is typical, and I agree 100%, this is typical of Islam. All right, let's get back to these. What are we doing here, Steve? What's going on? What are you doing, Steve?
Oh, am I doing something? Sorry.
You were trying to add somebody to the stage here. I don't know.
It was an episode of I Dream of Jeannie, and it's called "Get Me to Mecca on Time." So I just thought that was interesting. So
let's watch. We need the entertainment. Go ahead.
You guys got to watch it.
It's 25 minutes long. Never mind.
Yeah, because it's about that she's losing her power and she needs to go to Mecca to get her power back. And
really?
Yeah, and this is like, and it just shows you. I bet you that was paid for by somebody. So anyway.
And when was I Dream of Jeannie? That was made like back in the 60s.
Yeah, but it's never been off of TV. It's always, it's one of those eternal syndications.
Yeah, I've always liked those. I like that show.
Yeah, it's Barbara Eden and Michael Ansara has a small role in it, but yeah.
York. Barbara Eden's not something that you don't want to stop looking at.
York, I think.
Yeah, she's just a beautiful woman. Yeah. Okay, let's get back to this. Let's go to objectives of jihad. Now, we talked about what jihad was used for to establish Islam. It says the caliph makes war upon the Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians, provided he's first invited them to become Muslims, I guess. And then if they do not, let's see, and invited them by paying, if they will not, it says then invited them to enter the social order by having them pay a jizya, the Muslim poll tax. And then if they don't, which is significant of the paying, but not the money itself, while remaining in the ancestors, okay, until they become Muslim or else pay the non-Muslim poll tax. And then it goes on to say, fight those who do not believe in Allah in the last day. This is what they use as justification for. This is 9:29, probably one of the most famous verses in all of the Quran. So you convert, pay, or fight. And those are your choices. And then let's see here. It goes on to say, when a woman is taken captive, they become slaves by the fact of capture, and the woman's previous marriage is immediately annulled. So if you're a woman and you're captured, you are done. So is your marriage. And let's see, it goes on in chapter 11 when we talk about the jizya, the non-poll tax. I went in and I actually figured out how much this was, and it wasn't this terrible amount. But the fact is, number one, when you pay the jizya, you're paying this to Muslims to have the privilege to live in their land unmolested. It's like the mob with a god is what it is. Number two, the argument is always is as well, you don't have to pay, zakat. Well, this is true, but we still have to pay tithes to our church. So that nonsense flies completely out the window.
Also, can I add one thing, Eric, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Also, for zakat, it's not applicable on everyone, or not all Muslims pay zakat. Only if you have that amount of savings throughout the year, that makes you eligible for the zakat. If you don't have that many savings throughout the year, you don't have to pay zakat either. But when it comes to jizya, or the tax from the non-Muslims, you don't have to qualify for that. Your being non-Muslim qualifies you to pay jizya. However, zakat is only applicable on you if you save certain amount of money throughout the year. So then again, there's a whole two different words and two different meanings and two different applications. Zakat is not for everyone, only for whom can afford it or who are eligible for it. But jizya is for every non-Muslim living in a Muslim country,
regardless. Yep.
Yeah.
And the thing with the zakat, we're on Paul Sutliff's show. We went through that. And I tell you what, you talk about some nonsensical rules, laws, and, all kinds of different loopholes to get out of paying it. It's absolutely ridiculous. And we went through that for a couple of weeks trying to figure that crap out. But you're absolutely right with the difference between the zakat. Not everybody is required to pay it, but however, if you are a dhimmi, you have to pay the jizya, and if you don't, well, then you die. You don't get that protection from the mob, the Muslim mob. And then the other thing I was going to say about this was it says it's 4.235 grams of gold per person. Again, this has been abused and it's fluctuated over the centuries, where people were having to pay half of their income to Muslims in order to still receive the dhimmi status. So even though it's in here as this amount, it's been abused in the past. And it says here you're obligated to comply with Islamic rules that pertain to the safety and indemnity of life. And in other words, you have to follow Muslim rules. If you were, even though you're paying the jizya, you still have to follow the rules. And again, this is what we covered here in Reliance to the Pact of Umar. You have to wear a zunar. You can't greet people with assalamu alaikum. You have to go to the narrowest part of the street, or the side of the street where the manure is. You can't build new churches, and this is really gets me. You can't live in the Hejaz, that area between Mecca and Medina, and you are not allowed. Where is it? Any Muslim may not enter Mecca, the sacred precinct, under any circumstances, or and goes on to say any other mosque without permission. Cannot go into a mosque without permission. Now, not that I'd want to.
Let me remind you one thing. During the life of Muhammad, there was a time when he just started preaching, and the Arab tribes simply, like their humble way of saying that, hey Muhammad, we don't agree with you. Their way of saying it to boycott him for 3 years. That was their way of telling him that, hey, we don't agree with your belief system. But what is the Muhammad's way of saying that, hey, I don't believe in your God? It's war and it's jizya. So I think non-Muslim who actually defeated Muhammad and his tribe and boycotted him for 3 years, they could have waged war on Muhammad, but they didn't. So they were nicer than the prophet. I mean, prophet should be the most nicest person ever. Any prophet. I'm not just talking about Muslim prophets. Any prophet to be qualified as a prophet. I mean, shouldn't this be the number one criteria, that you have to be nice with other people? But those kuffars, those non-Muslims, they were nice with Muhammad. They were nice with the tribe of Muhammad. But when it came to Muhammad, when Muhammad came into the power, he wasn't as nice with those non-Muslims. He did not just boycott them, he waged war on them. So in this regards, I think non-Muslims were better than the Muslim prophet himself.
Well, a lot, as I was just saying earlier, a lot of non-Muslims and Muslims, mainly Muslims today, are embarrassed by what Muhammad did. They're embarrassed by his sunnah, by his example.
Especially in this month, Eric, where this month of Muharram, where a different sect of Muslims called Shias, they mourn and they cry because of what happened to the Prophet Muhammad's family. Even they don't realize that when the other party waged war on Muhammad's family, they did not take any captives with them. They spared the woman. But when Muhammad was fighting with other people, he was taking captives. So when they were fighting Muhammad's family, they were still nice with the woman at least. They did not take no captives of Imam Hussein's family. But when it was Muhammad, when Muhammad was in power, he did not spare anyone, man.
Yeah. He was a warlord. Nobody wants to admit that, but he was. Okay.
Hey, Eric.
Go ahead. Yep. I see you got something.
You know what's funny? I've got a source that says Jibril gave Muhammad 17,000 verses.
Say that. What is this?
That's from it's from Al-Kafi. It's a Shiite book, right?
Okay.
And it says Jibril was gave Muhammad 17,000 verses. how many verses do we have today? Like 6,000 and something. So
no idea.
Somebody lost 11,000 verses.
Yeah, we have like 3,606 something verses, so it makes like 12,000. Yeah, you're right. 13,000 verses have been lost, which means like 80% of the Quran has been lost.
That's a hungry goat right there, boy.
Had a big there's also where it says that Muhammad was given a chapter of 100 verses. There's no chapter in the Quran that has 100 verses.
Yeah, and that's these are again there are just so many things that do not add up. And I think last week was just a quintessential example of when you even go in and you show Muslims that their Quran says X and they say no, it says Y. For example, last week we had what's his nuts on here, Aladdin, and Aladdin was trying to tell me that the Quran says, and I was reading the verses, and I even went in and got the tafsir for them, and I showed him what the tafsir said, and he still denied it. And he said, no, that's not what it means. It means something completely different. In other words, don't believe your lying eyes on what, even though it's right there in front of you. So this is something that is a huge problem for Islam. And the more and more people, Islamophobes like you and I, and I'm using that term loosely as an Islamophobe, the definition of Islamophobe is a kafir who knows just a little too much about Islam. When Islamophobes start telling people about what Islam teaches, about what it has done in the past, and how it is practiced, and as Ali has pointed out here, and you've pointed out here, that there's things that just don't add up. And since they don't add up, we have to disbelieve. And I think this is what's led to this, what we would call this avalanche of apostasy that we see going on now. And, we always hear this, Islam's the fastest growing religion in the world. That might be true, but it's also has the fastest amount of apostasy going on. So we're starting to see this wash here. And hopefully someday in the near future, we'll start to see those numbers decline and see people coming to Christ, the true God. Okay, we're going to end it there today, folks, a little bit early. Again, everybody that comes here every time, I so appreciate you coming and contributing, whether you're on the panel or people in chat. You're always a lot of fun. I enjoy reading your comments as we go. We'll be back here next Monday afternoon. I'm fairly certain. Next Monday afternoon at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Until then, you all have a blessed one. Did anybody have anything I wanted to add before we go?
I do. I have to remind the Muslims that if you believe in Zakir Naik, you're going to have to believe that you don't exist. Because he said clearly, Homo sapiens is extinct. If you look up the video, 25 mistakes in 5 minutes with Nabil Qureshi, you'll hear it right back next steps. So nobody exists anymore, according to him.
Yeah,
that last.
Yeah, that video is hilarious because Zakir Naik, go watch it. Nabil Qureshi, 25 mistakes in 5 minutes of Dr. Zakir Naik. Oh, by the way. All right. God bless everybody. Thank you for coming.
There's also a question for Ali. That Connie wants to know if you're an ex-Muslim.
Yes, I am.
Okay, Ali, can you do me a favor?
Sure.
Here, I'm going to type. Can you send me an email? Secretary at Gmail. I'm putting it in chat here. Eric Thekifer at gmail.com. Is it not letting? There it is. Can you see that in chat?
Yes, I can see that. I'm going to just take a picture of it right now.
Yeah, just go ahead and shoot me a quick email. I want to be in touch with you. Okay, Dr. Kufar Phobia, you got to quit putting all these buff guys up there in these tight t-shirts, making me feel.
I know.
Anyway, God bless everybody. We'll see you next week on the Cross and the Crescent. Good Lord, Kafir. The Cross and the Crescent discussion group. God bless y'all, and we'll see you then.